back in regular session.
I asked a while a question and I'll ask it again. We're co-proportional with bank?
That's correct.
So when
And-
securitization co-proportional,
Well, yeah, we're number 2 co-proportional with bank.
and if I read this, we're the 10-year call, so we're 4 years into the 10-year call.
That's correct.
25-year amortization. And did I state properly that interest only would be the difference between the 1169 and the 764?
That's
about
correct.
$400-ish
That's right.
times 6.
Yes.
400.
Yeah. And I requested that this be retroactive to August 1st. However, the August payment has been made, so we would make it September 1st, if the board so approves.
So Guy, in this, are you, for the property, are you looking at just the footprint of these 19 units, or are you looking at the whole footprint from the original, where you had the 58?
The whole foot.
Okay, it doesn't include your storage units and like that?
No,
Next door.
it doesn't. No, it's just it's the footprint. We're looking at the property, the 19 units plus. We still have the ability to build the 4, which is an added value to.
But that's all one parcel? Or is
No,
it-
they're all split up. There's actually 54 parcels. There's 53 individual parcels, individual housing parcels, and then you've got the common area.
And that, to ask,
Sure.
I think I understood what Dave asked, that's all wrapped up into what you're trying to market as the property?
Yes. Yes. We're not looking to hold any of them.
Any other questions for Mr. Javeron? On the request to go interest only for 6 months.
It needs to get changed to September 1st, instead of August 1st.
Okay. We have resolution 0906, 2018-01. It's a resolution authorizing modification of loan to AYDM Associates LLC. Request to modify the loan for interest only for 6 months, and it'll be effective September 1, 2018. I'd entertain a motion and a second on this for further discussion.
I'll move that. Second.
Board discussion. Anyone have any other questions or? On the resolution, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Resolution carries.
I appreciate your assistance.
Good luck. Good luck with
Thanks. You're welcome. Thank you for your time.
Manufacturing report. Dave, you got?
Main thing we're working on right now is the annual manufacturing day is scheduled for October 12th. That's when we work with the other 3 counties, school districts, and arranging tours of various manufacturing facilities. Last year we had about 1,000 students. I'm not sure where we're at yet this year, but most are still taking in calls and from schools that want to participate. We're lining up some manufacturers on our end. So basically, spend a day exposing some of these youth to disposable manufacturing careers, manufacturing workplaces like get them interested. Derek was here, it's like our 6th year now maybe doing this, but
Yeah.
that's what we're focusing on right now.
Any questions for Dave? Marshall?
I also just wanted to mention that manufacturing day thing. That we've been working on that, and it's really an opportunity for the students to see manufacturing all the way from like high-tech manufacturing, like you'd see at Air Brake, to Knowlton Brothers, which might be kind of envisioned as a little bit more low-tech, but they make a very high-tech product, and sort of the full gamut in between there. I added Great Lakes Cheese won the Grand Champion Award at the New York State Fair, and I put them on some regional success stories, things on our website. I wanted to mention that. Yesterday I completed a grant for State Book, which is a demographic and geofencing data tool, and they're going to be National Grid. It actually got approved immediately. They'll be paying for half of that program. Working on a breakfast conference that tentatively we were looking at 10/12, but that's the same day as the manufacturing day. Pushed it back a week possibly to 10/19, and Watertown Savings Bank has agreed to sponsor that program. I also have the script for our commercial that we've been talking about for a while. Jay is kind of seeing if he can try out for the narrator position in this. So I was hoping that he was going to be here to read it. I'm not going to give him the job. So
I'll make him go through the effort.
yeah, he keeps talking to me through the phone, is trying to get it done. But if it's okay with you, it's really short. I'd like to read it to you, and just to kind of give a feel. I don't do it nearly as well as Jay does, and let's hope Jay doesn't do it nearly as well as a professional that we're going to have do it. But so the script starts. You have to kind of envision, as I talked before, a day in the life of a young soldier who has moved here and started to put down roots. That's kind of the theme, and it goes like this.
A young female soldier.
Young female soldier, hopefully. It's
Maybe Peggy should read it.
yeah. I'm not married to anything in particular as far as how it goes. I just want it to be the best possible program. So, Jefferson County wasn't my first home. I was brought here to serve, expecting the cold and not much else. But I discovered warmth, and in the people the charm and the beauty of this breathtaking place. And in it, fortune found me a home that felt right for the very first time. It isn't just what you see on the surface either. Stunning scenery and stories of his to offer the backdrop, sure. But what sets us apart runs deeper. A spirited current that flows through a determined people. We are farmers and fishermen, citizens and soldiers, but also families and friends who believe in and support one another. We push ourselves not just to survive, but to thrive. And you can feel it in the moment you arrive. Doors opening, opportunity brewing, and a fresher lifestyle at the center of it all. This is my home, this is my family, this is my future. Nestled in the heart of the North Country, but connected to the world. And I couldn't be more excited for what comes next, because in Jefferson County, the sky's the limit. And I don't love the sky's the limit at the end of it. Still kind of working on that part, but any sort of feedback, I can send this to you if something that you think should be added. There's a lot of things, we wanted to put a lot of different stuff in here. The beauty of the breathtaking place. We have all sorts of scenery that we can talk about, historic past. Everybody's heard, Jefferson County at one point had the highest per capita of millionaires. Things that we wanted to kind of touch on that. Obviously the farmers and the fishermen gives us opportunity to touch on agriculture, water, recreation, citizens and soldiers, obviously, doors opening, opportunity brewing, breweries, opportunity for entertaining and things like that, fresher lifestyle. We're excited about this and working hard on it. Any sort of thoughts, I'll send it to each of you. And so if you have an edit or something that you think that we're missing, touch on, we'd love some feedback. So.
Is this only linked through our website, or will it run independent?
This is going to run independent. We're going to have to pick our spots because it's going to be too long for your traditional commercial. But it could also be sort of chopped up into a 30-second commercial pretty easily. And then we're going to have the second piece that's more of a data centric spot. But yeah.
It reminds me of video you showed us.
Yeah. Well,
From what county was that?
that was
Poughkeepsie.
yes, and
Dutchess County.
Dutchess County. Yep. It's very similar. Obviously. No.
Don't tell Sal.
I made sure that.
You talked to him.
I talked to him, I made sure that that's not gonna be a problem. Because, you know, it's interesting, in the digital world, everybody steals everything that works. You know, website design, all these other things, but from a script and a wording perspective, there's a lot more, you know, it's easier to, for them to actually take action on you. And I made sure that that's not possible, so.
You said you'll send that out to all of them?
Yeah, I'm gonna send it out to all of you so that, again, if you think that I'm missing something, because there's room for a couple more sentences, you know, on a, you know, a minute, 15-second piece or so. So if, I'd love to, any thoughts anybody has?
Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
On the state fair too, HB, Great Lakes was a grand champion, HB would also won, I can't remember what it was, but HB would won the award there as well.
Jay's not here.
He's toning up his voice to be the voice.
Practicing.
Greg, you have a summary for us?
I talked about it, I sent this out shortly after the meeting, after our planning session, and didn't get a lot of feedback, except from Jay, who very aggressively wanted to remind me that while we might be interested in branded food production and some of the changes that are going on or could go on in agriculture, that milking cows is still the primary activity of agriculture in this community. So he's wanted to make sure he got that.
You're not the only one who's periodically reminded about that.
And
I didn't say anything, I mean, I thought we were gonna try to get together on this at some point anyway, but I think once in the time, we didn't get into the project of the workforce, because it's a real critical thing for us to improve this as well.
I mean, the session itself, I think we were all surprised by how long we spent in, basically in the board meeting before we moved into the strategic planning part of it. So there was less time ultimately available for that than we might have expected. But we did get some things done. And I tried to capture our, things that were, our conclusions, the things that interested us, and the areas that we thought were most promising. And really, there was the economic development side of it and the communication side of it, which we beat on quite a bit. So I tried to put together some recommendations. In academia, anytime you face any kind of challenge, the first thing you do is form a committee, which I truly deeply hate, but I found myself recommending that we do something like that. You know, we did put quite a bit of effort into thinking through some of these things, and I'm afraid if we don't do something next, this will just become a dusty file in the back. And 5 years from now, somebody will say, should we have a strategic planning session? So, and we will discuss the same issues.
I would agree with that. Being across the hall from the county planning for years, there's a whole lot of studies that just got done. If we don't
Yeah.
follow up, nothing will come out of our day on that.
I have, I'm probably the author of any number of those studies too, and
Those have the most dust.
yeah.
Would you recommend a refresher, say, every 6 to 9 months?
Well, the first thing my first recommendations that I had sent out in this document really were for communications, put together a working group, board and staff. You know, we talked a lot about possible ways to approach it, areas in which we could improve, and everybody, there was actually some disagreement in terms of what might work, things like that. I think we need to keep working on that, but I don't know that if we just bring the whole board back together again, we'll have the same conversations. So if we get a couple of board members and a couple of staff members, I think we could come out with a much crisper set of recommendations that the board could respond to. And I would recommend that group first look at our internal communications, how the staff talks to the board and how the board communicates internally with themselves. But after that, I do think we can also then look at how do we communicate with the rest of the world? How do we, through the media, are there ways in which we can improve that? Because there was a lot of frustration on the part of the board, frankly, at how we come across in the media sometimes. We have a really complex story to tell occasionally, and the news media in general is not a good tool for telling a complex story. And so we need to, I think, focus more on those relationships.
Well, if I can for a second go to your recommendation to set up an ad hoc committee to review our current approaches to alternative energy and the pilots.
Okay.
We discussed that almost even more than a year ago when we did the loan review committee first reviewed Apex's application. We talked about what group from the board would be involved in those pilot discussions. So if we're gonna start talking about setting up a committee to see how we move forward, that, since it's extremely topical now, at the IDA, I wanted to talk about, let's choose which members from this board or which subcommittee that already exists takes that step.
Yeah, I think it was clear to me that that's an important issue to this board. And there was a lot of discussion about how we have dealt with or could deal with alternative energy. And I think, you know, we've got some of that on the table right now, but there's no reason to assume that those guys are going away. That we will, when we resolve the current wind farming applications, that there won't be more after that. So I would agree. I mean, those were basically my recommendations. We could then go further on that one and set up little teams to look at opportunities in the other areas, but I would recommend that the first one we set up is communications, and the second one we set up, or do them simultaneously, would be in alternative energy. And I'll volunteer to be on one of them.
Is that a flip a coin choice?
Whatever the board would like, and I would do anything I could to help, of course, but those were my recommendations to the board.
What's the one thing that the strategic session, Scott Perry's reference to the county hiring their consultant to kind of determine
Well, the county is retained in the appraiser they have on.
But they were looking at dwelling, what I understood, dwelling into, interpreted dwelling into the revenue stream.
I think you offered to pay for it. Don't use the word hire. We don't want Bill to misinform Scott that he's getting out from paying for this.
Well, but that was part of a process they were engaging in, is to determine a more accurate position on a pilot. They needed to determine, what the revenue stream was going to be from a project like the Blue Island.
Yeah, I think the county has talked to that, and Bill, you can maybe speak more to it than anyone about getting an appraiser, hiring a professional appraiser and like that. And I think our board at that meeting decided that, we would accept the county's, rather than going out and hiring our own, we're gonna look to accept the county's appraiser.
But yet, you'll be, go back 4 years ago, it's probably no longer than that now. I mean, to some degree, we took part in one of those processes that determined, got a pretty good handle on as much as you could.
100%, yes.
10 years ago.
Yeah,
We did.
Understand it's ultimately a town responsibility.
So, that's probably more IDA discussion right now.
So the recommendation is to set up 3 committees, a communication committee and energy and ag.
And, well, yeah, and I would set them up in that order.
I guess what I would ask is that board members take a look at this and let's see who wants to volunteer to do this. I already have one volunteer, the Greg City. He stepped out and says, I'll be the first one.
Would these be envisioned to fall under kind of part marshal marketing, or are these separate from marketing? Like, where would they fit?
I
Like,
think
do you
they would-
envisioning a committee,
I think it should be a, call it anything you like, a group
a work group?
drawn from at least a couple of board members and who have an interest or background in those specific areas, and then their corresponding representatives from staff. So in terms of communications, for example, Marshall's an obvious victim to tag for that one.
So it's a way of taking opportunities and regulations and turning it into revenue, essentially.
Yes, and so we have these, you know, we identified a bunch of areas that we thought were interesting to us, and that seemed promising opportunities were we to focus on them, healthcare, ag, things like that. So the next question is exactly what do we do with those areas? What is it in healthcare what's a reasonable role this agency could play? What are the things that we can do that others cannot to further economic development of healthcare, for example?
I think we just got our second volunteer.
I'd be happy to serve on communications or agriculture.
I just want to know who gets to tell Jay that his committee is third on the list.
You list them all.
Yes, okay.
So,
Could someone
What-
help
Sorry.
define what the role of these committees would be? I mean, to have a kind of a capsule statement that says, this committee will address something or another, however you want to phrase it.
We could certainly produce charges for those committees.
I think that would help.
And I think,
Yeah.
you know, the idea is to make, we've come up with this, with some really big general targets on things we want to do, and now we need to refine that and come up with very specific recommendations to the board on each of these areas.
I think a mission statement of sorts would certainly help, because I'm trying to, sort of in my
Yep.
mind, is it marketing, is it taking
This is
some
what's
workload
gonna
off of
happen.
Jay?
But isn't that
Seems like
kind of what
Marshall
the
and
committee
Jay
would
already
do?
have this,
I
work.
would think that would
Just
be what the
maybe
committee
more
would do.
focused.
I'd be happy to put together a set of, you know, my recommended charges for those committees, which doesn't mean
I would
it's gonna be
second
right.
that. I would second your
All right.
motion to,
Okay.
Very important.
So,
you seem to have a better vision at this type of stuff with regards to how we can cluster into smaller sessions and basically aid the resources we already have.
right.
To seize different opportunities and the more, I mean, we already have marketing, but now we're
Yeah.
saying, hey, healthcare might be a very subset of marketing, and we have experts like Rich and others that can really say, if we went after these four important things and put some effort into it,
What do we have for
Do we
healthcare
create
and how
apps?
do we?
as everyone here is busy, anytime we can maximize our time and, you know, to the best use, and we're not just sitting there having meetings and spinning wheels. Thanks, Greg.
All right.
We'll, look forward to that kind of outlet there, and then
I know what I'm gonna do this weekend.
send it out, and we'll try to get some.
So just a quick question, in terms of targets, just like two things, so are we, settle this is, do we want to add workforce, or we may not need a committee to address it, but just in terms of where we're investing a lot of staff time too, in terms of, do we add workforce there as one of our targets? And another thing, under energy, not any like committee work, but another thing, is not just in terms of energy, but we're running into in terms of the need for energy infrastructure, and how you can support the delivery of energy to those things that need it.
You know, we could create as many of these as we want. I would suggest we start with the three we just talked about that there seems to be some interest in. I think things like workforce, which is infrastructure in general, treat the workforce as an infrastructure. Our plans for maybe what we think could happen in healthcare and what role we could play in that might affect our investment.
Yeah, I'm not
or
supposed
lack
to go
of
to committee on
investment.
that, I'm just saying in terms of, I mean, not, all the targets here aren't necessarily gonna need a committee to address.
Correct.
In terms of where we're devoting a lot of time and need to, as an agency of staff, that would be one focus. And maybe it doesn't need to be listed here, but even though it's not listed, it's something we will be continuing to put a lot of time and effort on from the staff side.
You know, I think it, I asked the board specifically at the meeting about inputs to staff time. What, are we doing the right things? Are our staff members spending their time in the right way? And the board really declined to give a lot of guidance there, you know, which I think we trust you guys, and it would be, I think most people felt it would be seriously micromanaging you to tell you that you need to spend 25% of your time on this or that.
I think it, Greg, if you'll allow me to suggest, it would be most helpful for staff to get a general view of a strategic direction from the board. Policies and procedures which will guide the organization over the next 5 and 10 years. The tactical aspects of how we do business can be quickly addressed. If there's a communication issue, okay, we'll figure out how to do that. But the real driving force here is, what are we going to do in 5 years for infrastructure? You know, we talked briefly about that. What are we going to do to assist workforce development? What are we going to do to help healthcare and education and some of the other critical aspects of the community? What role should this agency be playing? Because when we're staff trying to develop a policy, right now we're working on policies and procedures you guys set up 5 years ago. And so some of you are new to the game, and so you are looking at this and saying, well, why are they spending their time on alternative energies? Well, it's because 5 years ago, this board said that's where you're going to put your emphasis. So help us understand what strategically we're trying to accomplish.
You're saying it takes a little time to slow the stranger down?
It does.
There you go.
This is a big ship, you know, we're involved in a lot of stuff.
You had to navigate the turns a week ago.
Too much.
Very good.
Might look at something.
We look forward to the continuation. As far as committees go, I want to remind everybody that September 13th is our committee meetings for our in-house housekeeping stuff, so if we can, whoever's on those committees, look forward to.
Week from today, right?
Yes. Yep. Done. Any other unfinished business?
Not for the LDC day, thanks.
Counselor, anything for LDC?
No.
New business? Board members?
It's no new business.
Have a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Thanks, Greg.
My pleasure. Thank you.